Another important question is, should all countries take their fair share of refugees? In which case I don't think we are, if you look at the numbers. And also, should some countries take more refugees than others if they are more responsible for creating situations that cause refugees to flee? Should the countries that invaded Iraq, for example, bear more responsibility when it comes to dealing with the chaos and the mayhem that caused throughout the world? France, for example, famously did not engage, did not join the coalition of the willing and invade Iraq. So that's an important question. And another important question about the migrants, the refugees fleeing the war zones, are any of them combatants? A lot of people have observed that the majority of them appear to be men of fighting age, young men in their 20s and 30s. And these are the people strong enough and fit enough to survive the long, arduous journey. But if they are fleeing a war zone, we need to know if they are combatants. We need to know if any of them are terrorists. And only one of them needs to be a terrorist in order for there to be a tragedy or an atrocity here in the UK. So that's an important thing to think about. And if we think about the regions where these people are fleeing from, they're fleeing from Libya. You remember the Manchester Arena attack. There was another attack by a Libyan earlier this year in Reading. And the people fleeing the conflict in Syria and the people involved in the conflict in Syria, some of the factions over there were heavily funded and armed and trained by Great Britain and the United States. William Hague, the Foreign Secretary at the time, was sending funds to the so-called Syrian rebels, who we now know disintegrated into various different Islamist factions, some of them more extreme than others, but many of them linked to or affiliated with Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda in Iraq became known as ISIS. We had Jabhat al-Nusra, they had Jaish al-Fatah, many different factions of Al-Qaeda who at one point were receiving funds from the United Kingdom and America because of the naive philosophy of my enemy's enemy is my friend. Likewise, the weapons that were sent to Libya to arm the resistance there against Gaddafi ended up in the hands of other terrorists, all the same terrorists who'd made their way from Libya to Syria to the next jihad, to the next leader that the Western powers wanted to topple by proxy. Not bothered to go and bomb the country themselves sometimes, but free to just arm other lunatics and radicals to go and do it for them. And then they ended up bombing Libya anyway. After having set the country on fire, they bombed the place, and as Hillary Clinton said, we saw, he died, and look at Libya now. Slavery is up and running. But Syria seems to have survived. Bashar al-Assad has clung on to power, and some of the people making their way from places like Syria to the United Kingdom will actually be people coming back to the United Kingdom. There were unfortunately many misguided individuals that left from the UK and wound up in a conflict that they know nothing about and helped to set a country on fire. Shamima Begum's probably the most famous one. She's still trying to get back. But how many others will attempt to and succeed in returning home? And maybe that's their right. Maybe that's their human right. Not only are refugees allowed to return or arrive to any country they want, but people that leave a country are welcome to return. Although if they have been involved in crime, they need to be held accountable. And if the crimes you've committed were committed in Syria, then really it's the Syrian government that needs to hold you to account and not the United Kingdom. It's a bit of a mess. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what your take on all of this is in the comments, and I'll see you next time.